My immediate reaction is take your kids out of these schools.
Baltimore City Public Schools, under fire.
We, the taxpayer, are funding our own demise. This has to stop.
Decades of failure, now a civil rights crisis.
This is what the fight is for. It's about his future. It is about his future.
Students not getting the education they need.
It was hard. It was hard. It was hard.
Parents desperate to break the cycle.
How did my son pass if he didn't know none of this math? They just passed him along.
I feel as though that's setting him up for failure.
A community taking a stand.
The arrogance of some of these school systems to say, we don't care, we don't have to answer your questions. It's outrageous.
Hello?
It's worse than anything I've heard in the whole time that I've been governor.
It's ridiculous. It's sad.
Demanding change before another generation is lost.
You said the problem. You said what the problem was.
I came here tonight because I felt like I didn't have any other choice.
I was born and raised in Baltimore. I'm 44 years old.
Go up at the top. Let me see. You don't got no homework. None at all. Nothing. You sure about that?
He's a short little guy. For his age, you wouldn't think he's 12. He's small. And he just like any other kid, just want to have fun. Sometimes he's misunderstood. Sometimes he can be mischievous. But I'm not saying that every kid is perfect at all times, because that's impossible.
Baltimore is a tough city. Nearly a quarter of the people here live in poverty. The murder rate is the second highest in the country, while the school system is one of the lowest performing. For generations, most of the people in this city have relied on one school system to give them the education they need to find success. And for generations, that one school system has failed many of them.
Felt like you was being excluded all the time?
Yeah.
Singled out?
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep fighting for you.
Immediately after launching, Project Baltimore began hearing from parents, many with the same concern, that their children were advancing through city schools, failing to learn, but somehow passing to the next grade. Parents like Gregory Gray.
I'm disgusted with Baltimore City schools, because it's like you're protecting teachers that's not doing their jobs.
My own?
Yeah.
When Gray first contacted Project Baltimore, his son was in 5th grade at Mount Royal Elementary.
So now you getting the understanding?
Yeah.
He was struggling academically and emotionally after a family friend's murder.
Real hard. Real hard. He had this mentality, like he said, Dad, I'm not gonna let nobody get me before, I'm not gonna let nobody get me first. And I used to have to tell my son, that's not cool, and I never knew what was going on.
Gray's son was diagnosed with an emotional learning disability, but instead of getting the help he needed, Gray says his son was simply passed on to the next grade.
My son is really in desperate need of tutoring in math. And how did my son pass if he didn't know none of this math? They passed him. They just passed him along.
I felt left out.
You felt left out? I can feel you on that.
You see that somebody is doing something to a child, and I don't care if you don't want to get involved or not. If you, like Martin Luther King said, if you see wrongdoing and you don't, if you see injustice and you don't say nothing about it, you're more guilty than the person that's doing the injustice.
Gregory Gray is like so many other parents in Baltimore who say their children are just being pushed along, passed through the school system without getting the education they need. In many cases, we heard schools were actually changing grades from failing to passing. Grade fixing had always been a rumor, but in late 2017, we got evidence. What was that text telling you to do?
The text was telling me to go into my grade book, make sure no students are failing, and essentially change the grades if they are failing so that they will pass with a 60%.
In October 2017, a Baltimore City teacher from Calverton Elementary agreed to speak with Project Baltimore on the condition of anonymity. That teacher provided a text message from the school's principal, which appeared to be instructing teachers to change failing grades to passing. Please double-check end-of-year averages and make sure they are 60 and above. The text goes on to tell teachers if they find any grade averages below 60, to have them corrected. When you got that text, what did you think?
I was frustrated as a teacher. We're public servants, and when we see things like grade changing, that's self-serving. That's not helping the kids. Teaching a whole generation of kids that they don't have to be accountable for their actions or that hard work isn't valuable and valued when they're in school is so discouraging and damaging.
But it wasn't just a text message from 2017. We also had these 13 report cards for students at Calverton from 2016, showing their failing grades were changed to passing. In the first version of each report card from November 2016, you can see 13 students failed 18 classes. 1 month later, in December 2016, the report cards look very different. All 18 failing grades were changed to 60, the minimum for passing.
There were students on my roster all year that I had never met, had never seen.
You have kids that were in your class that you never met, never once came to your class, and they passed.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
It's much easier as a principal or an administrator to simply say, change the grade so the student is passing, even if it's barely passing, than to put interventions in place to help that child.
This teacher and others who spoke to us anonymously said grade changing is prevalent across the district, but few are willing to speak up because Baltimore City Schools has a reputation of retaliation against whistleblowers.
People are scared at Calverton. Teachers are scared. There's little to no support. People are afraid to do what's best for the kids because they're afraid of losing their jobs.
But this time, we had more than a whistleblower's account. We had a text message and report card showing grades were clearly changed. District leaders would not explain what happened. So Project Baltimore went to the school to get answers.
Hello? Hello?
Baltimore City policy, you can't be on school grounds.
The sidewalk is school
I'm not
grounds?
going to debate with you, sir. I didn't make the rules, I'm just enforcing them.
So we got to go on the other side of the street?
On the other side of the street, yes.
Okay. Yes, we're standing outside Calverton. Okay, so we can be on the sidewalk. Okay, we will stand on the sidewalk then. Thank you. Bye.
How you doing, bud?
Doing well.
Doing a good story?
We're trying to get a story, trying to speak to the principal of the school.
If she calls for police to have you removed, that's her way of telling you that she don't want to speak.
I want to see the students at Calverton and at other schools like this across the city get a fresh start. And it's going to be hard because the students are used to this now. But they deserve better, and our city deserves better.
Baltimore City Public Schools is one of the highest funded, yet lowest performing large school systems in America. Every year, it gets well over $1 billion from taxpayers. Yet in 2017, according to state testing, there were 6 schools that could not produce a single student that was proficient in math and English. That same year, there were 13 high schools that did not have any students proficient in math. And this isn't new. City schools has been underperforming for decades.
It was hard. It was hard. It was hard.
Michelle Bradley attended Baltimore City schools in the 1990s, and she's determined what happened to her will not happen to her daughters.
I had grown adults to tell me, you're not gonna be nothing. You know, you can't read, you can't, and it was hard, and I believed it.
More than 2 decades ago, when Bradley was in middle school in Baltimore City, she struggled. Her mom was on drugs. Her father was dead. If she went to class, she acted out and fell behind. But she said she kept passing for one reason.
The principal told me that if I do good, she'll allow me to graduate because I was getting too tall for the school that I was in.
Too tall for middle school and pushed on to high school, where she simply couldn't do the work because Bradley never learned how to read.
Nobody wanted to help me. It was like I couldn't get help, so I just got frustrated and I just dropped out.
A high school dropout in 9th grade and illiterate. Bradley says she was teased and mocked. Jobs have been hard to get. Some employers have taken advantage of her.
I was working 8 hours, but only getting a $40 paycheck. I was only bringing home $40.
And you didn't know.
The consequences of being pushed through Baltimore City schools without getting an education.
They failed me because if you're passing me, but you know I'm not getting this, then yes, I do blame, I blame them.
Was published in Chicago.
For Bradley, hearing her children read is something she'll never take for granted.
What makes me so happy is that I kept my child. And my child, she's a very good reader. She's a very good reader.
It happened to Bradley in the 1990s, and more than 20 years later,
Marquito, come in.
it was still happening.
He's a very smart and bright kid, but he didn't do what he was supposed to do this year.
For most parents, learning their child has been promoted to the next grade is good news.
I just think that it's terrible.
But not for Sierra Ford.
I couldn't believe it. I was shocked, and I was kind of upset.
When Project Baltimore met Ford, her son was at Mary Ann Winterling Elementary in West Baltimore. The school year did not go well. He failed all of his classes except one and was absent or late to school 147 days, almost every day. His mom said the school assured her that he would stay in the 3rd grade, which she wanted.
It's not hurting them, it will be helping them in the long run.
But it didn't happen. Ford's son was promoted to 4th grade.
What's the point of having passing and failing if you can fail every class and still pass? Like, it's mind-boggling.
What message does that send to your son?
That he doesn't have to work hard. He can do whatever he wants and still be promoted. And instead of holding him back and, letting him get the concept of the 3rd grade before promoting him, they promoted him, even with his bad behavior and bad grades. And that's not the message that I want to send.
Ford knew without a proper education, her son's future would be challenging.
I feel as though that's setting him up for failure.
Something Michelle Bradley understands.
Don't just pass the kids through, and if you know they can't read or comprehend, and if you can help them, help them.
How could Michelle Bradley make it to high school without ever learning how to read? How could Sierra Ford's son and Gregory Gray's son fail most of their classes but still get promoted to the next grade? Was Baltimore City Schools just changing their failing grades to passing to move them on? It certainly appeared that way. But to find out how many students this was happening to, we would have to sue Baltimore City Public Schools.
Almost a year to get this, and this is what you got last week. This is kind of a poke in the eye and kind of a pretty obnoxious.
Lucy Dalglish, Dean of Journalism at the University of Maryland.
There are some states that really take public records very seriously, and there are some that just kind of blow them off. Maryland is kind of in the middle.
In 2017, Project Baltimore filed a public records request with Baltimore City Schools, asking for documents related to grade changing. We wanted to see emails, memos, internal investigations, anything that would show us whether teachers were being pressured to change grades and pass students. This is some of what we got. More than 100 pages, entirely blacked out.
Maryland requires that you show bad faith, and quite honestly, I don't think I've ever seen bad faith more obvious. I mean, this is Exhibit A. So I guess it's back to paying more taxpayer dollars for lawyers at the state to defend against this lawsuit, which is really too bad. I imagine there are better things that the school district could be doing with its money.
February 2019. Our lawsuit against Baltimore City Public Schools heads to trial here in Circuit Court, nearly 18 months after we first requested documents related to grade changing.
The whole point of the lawsuit was you made public records requests. Under Maryland law, you're entitled to those documents. They should have given them to you without you having to hire a law firm and suing them.
Attorney Scott Martyr represented Project Baltimore during the trial. Cameras were not allowed inside.
What are regular people supposed to do? The purpose of the public records law is so that government doesn't operate in secret. The people have a right to know what their government is doing.
In March, Baltimore City Circuit Court Judge Jeannie Hong issued her ruling, finding city schools willfully and knowingly violated the law by refusing to release the documents.
The court's ruling was damning for city schools. The judge said the school system knew it was breaking the law by not releasing the documents, but did it anyway.
Knowingly and willfully violated the law. I thought, first of all, it didn't come as a shock to me.
I wasn't surprised at all.
Because I've been somewhat outraged at the lack of transparency.
Following the ruling, Maryland's governor and lieutenant governor sat down with Project Baltimore.
The arrogance of some of these school systems to say, we don't care, we don't have to answer your questions, and we don't have to provide you information, it's outrageous.
Accountability is key. You know, they're not accountable to any elected official, and they should be.
Judge Hong ordered city schools to turn over all documents and emails related to our initial request. The district was forced to reimburse our legal fees of more than $185,000.
When you hear teachers say, we've got to reach into our pockets to pay for school supplies, or when you hear parents saying our kids are freezing or sweating in the classroom, those are real problems. But it's not because they're not getting billions of dollars in funding. It's because of incompetence and mismanagement and complete lack of accountability and the wasting of money.
Why would Baltimore City Schools spend all that money and fight us for more than a year to avoid releasing public documents? You have to wonder, what were they hiding? We would soon find out.
So get the latest news and more live and local with Larry on the Larry Young Morning Show on WOLB 1010 AM.
You know, Larry, this is something. This is not good. This is not the first time that there's been allegations and reports on misappropriation of funds in North Avenue and the schools. What is the most appalling is people are trying to cover it up or sweep it under the rug and not want the information to get out.
In the months following the trial, Baltimore City Schools was forced to release all of the documents that were previously withheld, including 22 internal investigations the school system had conducted into allegations of grade changing.
22 investigations. This was stunning, because the school system's attorney told the judge under oath there were 11 investigations related to grade changing, and there were actually 22. Had we not sued and won, we never would have learned about the other 11. And some of what was in those other 11 was damning.
I'm sure they could have found other ways and means to use that money other than buying $30,000 Wizard tickets.
In addition to the wasteful spending, these 22 investigations confirmed serious allegations of grade changing.
In one of the reports, the city's own investigator called it an unwritten practice throughout the entire city to round failing grades up to passing.
The leadership of Baltimore City Schools had been downplaying our reporting on grade changing for years, but now there was no denying it. We now had the proof, widespread grade changing confirmed by Baltimore City Schools' own investigator. The district was all but forced to pass a new grade changing policy. But through all of this, City Schools leadership refused to address the issue publicly. And that included City Schools CEO, Dr. Sonia Santelises. Hi, Dr. Santelises. Good. Can we ask you a few questions before the school board meeting?
I'm gonna go here. The kids perform, because that's usually what I do.
By the summer of 2019, Dr. Santelises had been the CEO of Baltimore City Schools for 3 years. She had not agreed to any interviews with Project Baltimore since the lawsuit was filed 2 years earlier.
I've been trying to get a hold of you for a year and a half to ask you questions about
though, Chris, but I do need to go in.
Parents and taxpayers deserved answers from the school board or Dr. Santelises, but they simply refused to do an interview and would only answer questions they wanted to answer in the form of prepared statements. Sorry, I gotta read this thing. I've never done this before. So if we were going to get answers for the public,
our next guest is Chris Pabst.
We would have to go to them. Good evening, Dr. Santelises and Chair Kashani.
My name is Chris Pabst with Fox45.
I came here tonight because I felt like I didn't have any other choice.
We've been trying to get an interview with you for the past year and a half to talk about the recent public records lawsuit between Fox45 and Baltimore City Public Schools. We believe that we have a series of questions that taxpayers deserve to have answers to, and I felt that this was the only place that I could come to get in front of you two, because I've been trying to for the past year and a half, and you have declined all of our requests. So I have some questions that I would just like to run through and hopefully get some answers from you.
I believe taxpayers have a right to know who made that decision to violate the law, according to the judge. Has that person or have those people been held accountable? Grade changing is happening in Baltimore City Public Schools. Those are the documents that you did not want us to have and did not want us to read. We now have them as a result of this lawsuit. And your own investigator said grade changing is happening. What is this school board doing to address those concerns? No answers?
Not right now, no.
We'll continue to reference you to our statements that we've made in the past.
You can get your mask and your glasses. It's the first time in here. Yes. Marvin Timothy Lee.
You're from Baltimore?
Yes, I am. Born and raised. Frederick Douglass High School. And this class here in the black is my first class.
When we won the lawsuit, Baltimore City Schools also had to give us all of their emails related to grade changing. In the fall of 2020, we received 8,249 emails sent by City Schools employees. We read every one of them. And some of what we found, we took to 2 former City Schools teachers.
This is not surprising at all. This is normal. They tell you what to put down.
In the more than 8,000 emails, we found cases of failing grades rounded up to passing, and teachers showing their opposition to it. This teacher says that is absolutely irresponsible and violates the integrity of the institution. Teachers were also outraged about students being promoted without attending class. This email says, "Tell me, how does this make sense? 40 even for a no-show?" And this one, "He can't make you change those grades. If my kids didn't take the exam, they get a 0. Don't change the grades." That is Mays, the principal, trying to make data look better. There's also emails from administrators instructing teachers to give students grades that were not earned, like this one, which says any student who did not come and take the midterm should get a grade of 40, and students that took the exam but did not perform well should get a grade of 50. Marvin Lee taught barbering from 2003 to 2008. In that time, he says his students' grades were changed.
My first year, I had 2 or 3 students I didn't see at all. They didn't come to class at all, and they got grades of 40. When I put the grade in, I was told that you can't give them no lower than a 50. Then, when the next year, they came back in 11th grade, and they were still in my class. They didn't get the hours they were supposed to get, and they didn't have the right grades. Now, I had to turn my grades into the department head, which I never saw final grades for my class. All I knew is I kept getting the same students. It's ridiculous. It's sad. We got smart and bright kids out here. These kids aren't, failing because they can't do it. They failing because they know they can. That's the difference.
These emails offered a lot of insight into what was really happening inside of Baltimore City schools. You can see why the district wouldn't want us to have them. But there was one email that really stood out to us. It was written by an assistant principal to one of his teachers. In it, he describes how students are socially promoted until they get to high school, and then all of a sudden, they're expected to pass. He says the students suffer from learned helplessness.
Social promotion is the practice of passing students to the next grade, no matter their skill level, to help their self-esteem. Baltimore City Schools policy states a student can only fail 1 grade prior to high school.
I'd be banging on some doors. I'd be looking forward to the next staff meeting if I got this.
Aaron Thompson taught in Baltimore City Schools for 15 years.
You said the problem. You said what the problem was. We've promoted them up until now, and now we're going to hold them accountable. But you have to understand they have learned helplessness, so you might want to change the grade. Make up your mind. Make up your mind. Which way do you want to go here? They don't know how to succeed, so go ahead and let them succeed? Or are you going to hold them accountable? But you might want to rethink that because it has a long-term impact on their life trajectory. You think social promotion doesn't have a long-term impact on their life trajectory?
3 years after we filed that first public records request concerning grade changing, we finally had everything we asked for. And it confirmed what parents, teachers, and students had been telling us, that the school system designed to help them had been cheating them out of an education for generations. And instead of being transparent, the leaders of that school system were willing to spend a lot of money to go to court to stop the public from ever knowing. And in the end, there are real-life consequences for the people involved. You're going to keep fighting for your son?
Yes, I will fight to the very end.
How can he pass on to the next grade if he didn't even grasp the concept of the grade that he was in?
It's embarrassing, but if my story, my testimony can help somebody, help a child that is like me, I'll take the laughs. I'll take all of it.
It is time for the people to step up and the courts to step in.
In January 2022, city residents Giovanni Patterson and his wife Shonda filed a lawsuit against the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, accusing the school system of wasting tax dollars while failing to properly educate students. The crux of the lawsuit? That taxpayers are forced to fund not only a broken education system, but also the added costs for the criminal justice and social welfare systems.
We, the taxpayer, are funding our own demise. This has to stop.
The complaint, filed in Baltimore City Circuit Court, cited Project Baltimore's investigations that exposed poor test scores, students promoted without completing the coursework, and grade changing. 6 months after it was filed, the lawsuit caught the attention of prominent civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who announced he was joining the Pattersons' legal team.
This is what the fight is for. It's about his future.
Crump, known for representing families in high-profile cases such as Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, believes Baltimore will be the center of the nation's next civil rights battle. Do you believe the civil rights of the students in Baltimore City, as far as education is concerned, are being violated?
I think it's even more than a civil rights issue. It's a human rights issue. It's just as horrific when you think about our children being killed softly, slowly, every day in an unsympathetic, uncaring school system that believes in just passing them along to get along. When you cannot read and write, you don't have literacy, you don't have education, you're already in prison. They just haven't shut the prison gate. And that's what we're fighting against.
If you're setting them up for failure, this is a way of doing it.
Rick Henry is Maryland's first Inspector General for Education. He was appointed in 2020.
I think it's a big deal. The allegations are very strong, and to pass students along or just round the grades, it does a disservice.
The Inspector General for Education oversees the state's public education system. In June 2022, nearly 5 years after Project Baltimore first began investigating grade changing in city schools, the IG released his own findings, and his investigation cited much of our reporting. The IG focused on 136 Baltimore City schools, grades 6 through 12. From 2016 to 2020, he found 12,542 failing grades were improperly changed to passing. The IG estimated at some schools, up to 10% of students graduated who should not have.
A number of the teachers, number of the educational professionals felt as though they were pressured to make changes. And this, our team actually showed that was occurring. What was very stunning to us is that we were being told that this was not the practice, but we were, as we were looking through all of the documents that were provided by the city schools, we kept uncovering more and more.
The IG's report includes several examples of emails where teachers were told to change failing grades to passing. This email from an assistant principal to one school reads, "Per principal, all 58s and 59s must be changed to a 60. This email sent to an assistant principal at another school reads, "Please change the following students' progress from failing to passing."
Yes, it couldn't get any more direct than that.
That's pretty direct.
That's pretty
teachers.
direct.
The question then became, where did that directive come from? Were top-level administrators pressuring schools to change grades? Baltimore City Schools CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises told investigators she was unaware of undue pressure on principals to change grades. Chief of Schools John Davis told investigators he didn't have any evidence that the administration was pressuring principals to change grades.
This is what's occurring. If the chief of school is unaware, then I think it's something that he needs to look into further. Dr. Santelises depends on the chief of schools to look at these matters.
This was unbelievable. How could the two highest-ranking officials at central office be unaware of what is happening in their school system? We had been reporting on this for 5 years. We had aired student transcripts, student report cards, text messages, emails, teacher after teacher coming to us saying grade changing was part of the culture. And remember, in 2019, I took those allegations straight to the school board.
Grade changing is happening in Baltimore City Public Schools.
Dr. Santelises and John Davis were at that board meeting. They were in the room. And to say they were unaware of pressure on principals and teachers is just one reason why many people in this city do not trust their own school system.
Our report only touched the surface, and I think there's more there. We were relying upon Baltimore City to turn over the documents that we were asking for. And we based our report on those documents that the city themselves turned over to us. You're only as good as what the agency turns over to you.
The IG report recommended an emergency audit of city schools' grading policies to be conducted by an independent organization. City schools declined. That audit never happened.
Project Baltimore, I think, did a great job uncovering some of these facts and bringing them to people's attention.
Following the IG's report, then Governor Larry Hogan asked a state prosecutor to investigate egregious behavior by city schools and possible criminal malfeasance.
And we've just asked to refer the other cases to the people that can do the criminal investigation. So I think there's been an ongoing awareness of the problem and different people with the responsibility looking into it, but it took persistence, and it took this IG, which we had to fight hard to get on board, to gather the information, to do the finding of fact.
By June of 2022, we had overwhelming evidence of grade changing in Baltimore City Public Schools. The Inspector General had confirmed 5 years of our reporting, and the governor was calling for a state-level investigation into criminal wrongdoing. This should have been a major wake-up call for Baltimore City leadership. But just weeks after the governor called for that criminal investigation, the mayor of Baltimore held a surprise press conference.
It is great to be here with you all, and thank you for joining us for this very special moment today, as we are celebrating someone who doesn't get celebrated often enough. If it was up to me, Dr. Santelises, we are all here today because we want to congratulate you on 6 years of service as the CEO of Baltimore City Public School System.
There. Well, she didn't know that this press conference was happening.
And so thank you very much for the next 6 years of your life.
What really matters when you look across the country, stability is what matters.
And I think about we have the right leader.
You've encountered a number of challenges over the past few years, a budget deficit that resulted in layoffs, regular criticism from local media, that should be bolded. On behalf of the people of Baltimore, I commend you for your continuing commitment to the education and development of our young people. Signed by myself, Mayor Brandon Scott.
The only way that I knew this was not about summer learning was when my husband and 2 of my daughters walked through the door. That was the giveaway. God has been faithful. I am married to the best man anywhere.